Welcome back to CubeWorks. Your OEE dashboard currently says 78%. Your team feels good about that. The monthly report goes out to the executives, and operations management is satisfied. But the mechanical reality on the factory floor is failing. The true OEE is actually 61%. We know this because we have walked into this exact situation. Different factory, different industry, same massive gap, more times than I can count. OEE is not an abstract reporting metric. It is the number that drives physical operational decisions. It determines where you deploy your maintenance resources, sets your production targets, and dictates which lines receive capital investment and which are ignored. When that number is inflated, your decisions are wrong. You invest in the wrong line. You completely miss the real bottleneck. And this discrepancy is almost never intentional fraud. It is an unconscious, systemic inflation present across multiple manufacturing sectors. One manufacturer we audited had been reporting an OEE of 81% for 2 straight years. After a proper analysis, we found their true baseline was 63%. That 18-point gap was quietly hiding 12 million pesos in annual production losses. The financial bleeding was completely invisible because the metric designed to reveal it was actively concealing it instead. Managing your operations to an unintentionally inflated number is actively worse than having no performance data at all. The root of the problem lies in the engineering standards themselves. Frameworks like SEMI E10 or Nakajima's original TPM model are straightforward in principle, but they possess enough definitional flexibility that 2 engineers can calculate completely contradictory numbers from the exact same raw plant floor data. We have audited OEE calculations across manufacturing sites in the Philippines, comparing their specific methods directly against these standards. Every single facility exhibited at least 2 material calculation errors. Most had 4 or more. Today, we will conduct a forensic audit of those errors. We will break down the 7 specific points of failure where standard plant floor tracking breaks down and mathematically inflates your score. First, let's start with the denominator, time. OEE must be calculated strictly against your planned production time. That is the exact boundary of time the factory intended to run. Everything outside that boundary does not affect OEE. This brings us to mistake number 1, the incorrect inclusion of scheduled maintenance within that planned production time denominator. If you have a 30-minute scheduled maintenance window every shift, many plants will include it in the calculation, simply because the machine technically wasn't producing. But scheduled maintenance is a controlled management decision, not an unexpected production loss. If you include it in your operating time, you artificially penalize your availability score for a stop you specifically planned for. You must subtract it before calculating OEE. Mistake number 2 is calculating a shift's production against a 24-hour calendar clock instead of the actual scheduled shift hours. If your factory runs 2 8-hour shifts and you calculate OEE against 24 hours, your number will be severely deflated. You are measuring 16 hours of production against 24 hours of time. This sounds obvious, but it is a pervasive flaw we constantly find embedded in manual Excel-based tracking systems. The absolute mathematical rule here is simple. Only scheduled operational time dictates the denominator. Moving to the performance component, the calculation is straight math. Ideal cycle time multiplied by total pieces produced, divided by operating time. Mistake number 3 occurs right at the start of that equation. It is the practice of substituting the machine's true engineered design rate with a slower, degraded historical average. There is a heavy political incentive behind this error. If the ideal cycle time is set conservatively, at a slower rate that even a degraded machine can consistently beat, performance scores look artificially high. Every operator on the floor benefits from a lower target. But evaluating a machine at the actual speed it usually runs, rather than the speed it was built to run, is an illusion. Reaching 100% of a degraded baseline does not mean you are operating at 100% performance. Always use the manufacturer's nameplate rated speed. If your machine cannot reach its engineered design rate anymore, that is a critical maintenance failure, not a performance success. Our next 2 mistakes show how manual tracking deletes critical data entirely.
Mistake number 4 is utilizing a minimum downtime threshold.
Many plants only record downtime events that exceed 5 minutes, completely ignoring microstoppages. This timeline illustrates exactly why that destroys your math. If a machine stops for 2 minutes, 40 times a shift, you have lost 80 minutes of production. But under a 5-minute threshold filter, those minor stops simply vanish. You lose over an hour of capacity, and the calculation never registers it. Mistake number 5 compounds this loss. It is the unreliability of human estimation in manual logbooks, which systematically overstates your availability. When a machine breaks down and an operator fills in a paper log, the duration is almost always rounded down. Nobody writes exactly 23 minutes unless they are staring at a stopwatch. They estimate 20. This subconscious rounding creates phantom production time on paper that did not exist on the floor. The real solution is objective data capture. By using industrial IoT automated machine state detection wired directly to a PLC, the system sees every exact stop and records the precise duration, eliminating human estimation entirely. Removing manual threshold filters and human estimation is the fastest, most immediate way to recover the integrity of your baseline data. The third component of OEE is quality, and its definition is rigid. The quality metric strictly measures first-pass yield, units that came out correctly on the very first try. Mistake number 6 is a massive loophole. It is the practice of counting units that require rework as good output, simply because they eventually pass a secondary inspection. If a unit fails the first inspection and gets sent back for rework, it has consumed extra operational time and secondary resources. Mathematically, it must be classified as a defect. In high-volume assembly operations, this error is devastating. A rework rate of just 3 to 8% when misclassified as good output will falsely inflate your total OEE by multiple percentage points. The absolute rule for quality is first time right. If it did not pass on the first try, it is a defect. Eventually good is not a mathematically valid state in OEE. Our final error actively misdirects your management team. Mistake number 7 is calculating OEE at an averaged line level rather than at the individual machine level. Consider a production line with 6 machines operating in series where a single critical constraint exists. By averaging the performance across all 6 machines, the line yields a satisfactory OEE of 73%. This is a mathematical illusion. It completely hides the localized 54% bottleneck machine constraining the entire process. When management sees that 73% average, they direct their improvement efforts broadly across the whole line. The actual problem, the one specific constraint, gets a fraction of the attention it requires. You must also avoid the opposite extreme, tracking OEE at such a granular level, like individual tool bits or molds, that the context is completely lost. The optimal resolution for tracking is the individual machine level. This is the exact layer of data you need to identify and drive actionable root cause maintenance. Rolled-up line and plant-level averages have their place, but they should be reserved exclusively for high-level performance trend tracking, not for diagnosing problems. Averaging tactical metrics is a dangerous practice. It obscures the exact operational data you need to recover lost capacity. This chart reveals the true cost. These 7 well-intentioned errors compound together to create a massive data illusion. Subtracting the inflated cycle times, the hidden microstops, and the misclassified rework, a satisfactory 78% quickly degrades to a stark 61% reality. That 17-point gap is not a rounding error. It represents real, physical, recoverable production capacity sitting unused on your floor. Your immediate action is to take your facility's current calculation methods and audit them directly against these 7 parameters. If you find 2 or more of these errors present in your tracking, your baseline reporting data is materially compromised. Do not invest another peso of capital into line improvements or expansions until that baseline metric is mathematically sound. Next week, we dive inside the 3 components of OEE: availability, performance, and quality, one at a time, because achieving data reality is the non-negotiable first step before attempting continuous improvement.